test the microphone. Just clearing my throat there. Okay. Making sure the stream is working here and that our bit rate is appropriate. Looks like our bit rate's doing pretty good. Okay. Well, let's get sculpting. Why not, right? I've got some coffee here I'm gonna be sipping on. While I get my work going. Actually, before I don't think of it, let me plug my phone in since I'm like running on 0 battery here. Hi. I'm sure X symmetry is on too, that's important. So we're just gonna start here by blocking things in a little bit. We're not gonna get into any crazy specifics. And we just want to make sure that we're not worrying too much about the details, but we do want to get the general forms in place and kind of build that mass up gradually over time. So that's kind of the idea. Now, I'm not sure if this is the best technique, but I use the lasso tool, and I use it in join mode. You know what, that's too thick. Let's turn on use cursor for depth. That tends to help. Okay. Good enough. Now we're gonna turn off face sets for remesh. And we are gonna massage the form a little bit here and get it so it's not so weird and prickly looking. But yeah, just kind of think of it like we're starting with a punny character, and we're just pushing and pulling things. And actually, we're gonna use the inflate brush here. Start giving ourselves some mass to work with. So it's a progressive process here of moving through and over the form and sort of like building things up and getting more into specifics as we move forward. I had a figure drawing instructor who said it really well. This was a professor of the college I went to. He used to make the analogy that it's similar to being a ladybug, and that you are a little ladybug and you are crawling over the form, gradually learning about it, and taking care of the specifics only as you notice them. And that analogy has stuck with me ever since. So I'm probably getting into too many statistics here. I'm just in kind of a flow in this region, so I'm going with it. Okay, let's give her some feed. That's probably a good idea. So let me just do a quick audio check here on the stream. So there's going to be echo for a hot second. I apologize. So let me just do a quick audio I guess I'm not going to hear it. I guess I am going to hear it. Nice. Sounds like it's working properly. I just check that periodically to make sure that's working. I have, in fact, done entire streams where there was something wrong with the audio. And afterwards you end up feeling a little foolish. I think we should start adding the arms, just to sort of keep everything in the same level of detail. And I am grateful for this coffee, man. So, my technique of adding the geometry may not be your preferred technique, but ultimately I'm just trying to have mass as quickly as possible so I can start sculpting it and working from there. I imagine there might be more savvy, blender ways of doing things, but I just like to work quickly. And I actually do have these two little figurines I bought off of Amazon that I use as reference. They're like, I don't know, like plasticine or something. It seems to be an STL file that everyone sort of prints and then like markets as their own file. But it works out really well if you just want to figure out like the specifics of a certain area without opening up an anatomy atlas or getting that specific with it. So I highly recommend having reference on your desk in front of you at all times if possible. I am going to change this song because I don't like it. Let's see. I like this one. I like something a little moody. Just a little bit on the depression side. Nothing too cheerful. This isn't cheerful work. This is pensive work. You should be brooding and some works. Well, good for you, number one. I enjoy doing this, but when I'm doing it, I'm very focused. And I'm generally kind of frowning and like staring at the screen, and if you saw me, you would think I was quite upset. Okay, it looks like the bitrate had dropped there for a minute, but it should be coming back up now. My apologies. So, my kilobytes per second are quite healthy, but for some reason I'm getting a error notice from YouTube here. This does happen every now and then, well, not too often. Hopefully the stream is somewhat legible on your side of things. This is one of the downsides of doing this live. And it looks like we're back to having a healthy bit rate again. Well, that's good. And we should build up her deltoids just a little bit since her arms are slightly raised. And we're sort of just going over the form and adding a few specifics here and there where it's helpful. I'm gonna start to create the beginnings of a belly button there. I'm gonna start the definition of the ribs. We may also do a little bit of serratus anterior here, just to sort of give that slight definition early on. And now we're going to work on the arms and catch those up a little bit. So we're going to show the insertion points here a little bit of two of the tricep heads. We can define the elbow a little bit. And we can add just a little bit of thickness here. Give a little bit of volume. Before we get too specific with the forearm, excuse me as I correct my knuckles, we are going to go in and create the palm. Give ourselves something to work with here. And we're gonna have to fix the proportions of all of this afterwards. Well, I can see right now that the forearm is way too long. So we'll go in and do a quick adjust there. And let's just use a snake hook brush here. Start off our thumb. And we'll create sort of the definition, that arch that the fingers extend from. And we're going to undo the remesh, and I think we're going to raise the resolution here. Then we have some excess leftover geometry here, so what we're going to do, go into edit mode, go into wireframe, and we're going to select that, and we're going to delete vertices, just so we don't have any strays. Then we're going to go back into shaded mode here, go back into sculpt mode, and we're going to resymmetrize. Okay. Well, the idea there is that you don't want to have flowing vertices on your mesh because that will cause you problems later on. So we do have to sort of go through the entire form, smoothing it out again. It gets a little voxelized, and we will have to go back in and pull out details again. But before we do that for the rest of the body, I do want to do just like a little bit of detail for the hands and the forearms, because that is the area where currently we have devoted the least amount of time. So anyway, lift it back to it. We gotta make the arms start looking like arms. The forearm musculature is kind of interesting, and there's a lot going on in a relatively small amount of space. There's a lot of flexors and extensors that overlap and tuck into each other, and there's just, generally speaking, a lot going on there. Which is why we are all students of anatomy, and we all have to keep constantly improving our knowledge and our experience with it. And I keep openly threatening to audit at the local colleges here and actually do an anatomy course, should I ever have the time for it. I'd very much like to. I think it will be fun. And I think I would learn a lot, and they would help me with some of the specifics. And if anything, just a better understanding of how anatomy is supposed to look. I actually have an anatomy app installed on my phone. It's the Atlas of Anatomy. I think they actually use it as a quick reference in some pre-med programs. And it really is wonderful. I do really like using it. If I'm looking for an insertion point for a specific muscle, if I'm a little unsure of how it overlaps, maybe over a specific bone, or if I just want to jog my memory about something, it's a really nice way of being able to do that quickly. So I always recommend that you find the references that you like working off of, and that are convenient for you and your life and your schedule. And just like that, I completely was dishonest and said I was going to work on the forearms, and I got totally carried away with everything else. And that will often happen. Well, while I'm here, let me do some more specifics. Whoops, too much overlap there. Let's use the inflate brush instead. The inflate brush has a slightly different feel to it, so I don't always like to use it instead of the clay tubes brush, excuse me, I have to make sure to enunciate here. But the inflate brush can be a nice substitute if the geometry is very close on both sides and there's a lot of overlap. Okay, back to the forearms. Okay. Now this is where things start getting a little interesting. Pushing and pulling things around so we can get discernible digits for the fingers takes a lot of effort. And it is kind of a touchy-feely process. Touchy-feely, that's funny because I'm talking about the fingers. I just realized that. A little bit of modeling humor there. And even though we are at a fairly low resolution here, we can get quite a bit of detail and nuance in it still. Okay, now we're gonna work on the scale of the overall form and get it so that things don't look like they're out of proportion. So there's gonna be a lot of fine-tuning and adjusting at this point. I'm gonna say the hands are a little bit on the small side. So after saving, we're gonna go into edit mode here. And we're gonna turn wireframe on, so we are selecting everything that can possibly be selected. And we're going to do a selection like, not quite like that, like this. There we go. And we're going to scale our selection up ever so slightly until we get something that approximates the proper size of the hand. Sorry, it's hard to talk and do this stuff at the same time. So then what we do is we go back into sculpt mode, and then we go into our symmetry options, and we symmetrized, and then we smooth out the section that we made kind of funky, while trying not to lose the mass of the form here. And then we remesh. And hopefully that has given us hands that approximate the actual size that they should be a little bit more closely. Another thing I'm noticing here is that there are just little anatomy tweaks, pushes and pulls. I'd like to make sure using the Elastic Deform brush, which is one of my favorite brushes in case you hadn't noticed. And more modifications here. We're pushing in some areas while pulling in other areas. Okay, we're gonna do a quick lighting check. There, we just want to make sure that the form overall is looking human. Nothing resembling sci-fi here. It's okay. And we'll go back into sculpt mode. And we'll do a few more details before we before we throw some clothing on quickly. And let's do just a little bit more pectoral definition here. And just a little bit more of the sternum and the clavicles. And the anterior superior iliac spine, which is an important point on the hip where a lot of the muscles in the front of the leg here actually tie into. And we're just gonna shift that over slightly. Okay. I haven't really looked at this that closely. I've been moving along kind of quickly here. What I will most likely do is after the stream, I will go in again and work on some details. And overall, just make things look a little bit nicer. But I try to move quickly on the stream. Did not mean to do that. Normal radius should be, I believe, 0.5. Okay. What I wanted to change here was the strength. There we go. So we're just gonna put some YouTube safe clothing on here. So we don't have issues with content strikes and all that kind of stuff. I don't have to get too specific with this portion. These are just throwaway clothes. They're not that important, but I do like somewhat clean lines. It just sells the realism of the model a little bit better. Okay. So what we will do now is a mask extract, and we are not going to project a sculpt, but all the other settings we will keep. Going into our modifier, we set the offset to 1 and the thickness to, I believe it's 0.00025, I think. And we'll assign a material to that, giving it a roughness that's a little bit higher. A little bit more than that. And we'll give it a base color in the orange section. And then we'll apply material to our body as well. And we will apply sun subsurface to it and give that a blood red color. And you know what? We're gonna name this too. And we will name this materials as well. And we'll make sure that in a hierarchy we have also named it. And one more thing I like to do, and this is just nitpicky, I like to go in and actually sculpt down some wrinkle details. Again, this is throwaway geometry. This does not technically matter. But when you are trying to sell the realism of a model to a client or to anybody who's looking at it, it does help to have a little bit of an eye for detail. And just a little bit of detail can go a long way. Okay, quick save, and then we're going to go into rendered mode. And I can see that the thickness is a little too minimal on this, so we'll actually get rid of one of those zeros. There we go. So those little wrinkles, I know, it just goes a long way. Although I'm gonna say the cloth is still a little too thick, so we're gonna make that a 1. There we go. And right at the 50-minute mark, it looks like here, we have a person. Look at that. So I might go in later and do some more details and get it looking nicer and refining it and so on and so forth. But I'm pleased. I think this looks nice. You know, I think it's a nice start. So I guess that's gonna be the stream. Thanks for tuning in. I appreciate it. Leave a like or dislike if you didn't like the stream, although if you've watched until this point, I assume you might have enjoyed something. Leave a comment with any questions you have about using Blender or 3D graphics in general. Feel free to subscribe. I'll be doing more streams like this in the future, and I'll also be doing other streams where I take characters and actually finish them off and do retopology and all that good stuff. And feel free to tune in for all of that. It should be a good time. Anyway, enjoy your afternoon. Have a nice day. Signing off.